Right, so it seems like we have yet another big update in the bricks and minifigs situation. In fact, this video is going to be a direct update to the video I made yesterday. Now, in case you didn't see my video yesterday, I was talking about something that I thought was good news because it seemed like Ben was going to be no longer silenced. And this is because there was a joint motion for modification of the temporary restraining order that was filed, which basically means that the defendants and the plaintiffs have filed this motion together. And the important part to me, and the reason why I thought this was good news, is because in the modification, it basically states that the defendants, Brian, Ben, Victor, can now actually speak about the situation and post videos. And in my previous video, we also took a look at this document right here where it says the court hereby grants the party's motion and modifies a previously entered temporary restraining order. And I believe the only thing left to do at this point was for the judge to sign it. And since this was a joint motion where the plaintiffs and the defendants have agreed on this, I think everyone just kind of assumed like, okay, the judge is probably going to sign this. In fact, Ben also assumed that this was a done deal. I mean, if we take a look at this post that he made on Patreon yesterday, it's got a video attached to it. I'm not going to show the video because it's on his Patreon, but we can take a look at the caption, right? It says, I got my freedom of speech back. I just officially got my First Amendment right to talk about bricks and minifigs again. Here's some updates on what's to come. In fact, Sheldon Norcross, Ben's friend, who appears in his videos, he had his phone snatched away by a police officer in one of the bricks and minifigs videos. Well, he also uploaded a video basically confirming this. Now, in the video, he is kind of like using very vague language, I guess for legal reasons, right? He's saying like, none of this is true. This is all like hackers who found this information. And he's basically making a joke out of it whilst also giving like new information. And this is what he had to say.
A magical, mystical force thing that stops people from like clicking buttons on a phone and posting things is going to be gone very soon. It's over, you know. I'd say, and this is my opinion, this is just an educated guess, you know, that part 3 will be out probably in 2 weeks, allegedly, according to, you know, this fake video that isn't real.
So yeah, as you heard, Sheldon saying that this like magical thing that's stopping people like talk about situations and post things on the phone is going to be gone, and part 3 is going to be releasing very soon. But yeah, like I mentioned earlier, we have ran into a bit of a problem here because the judge is not signing the modified TRO. And we can see his reasons for this, right? He says the modified TRO is not signed by court as the following section is very broad, as it is unknown if the defendants know who the employees and franchisees are and which locations as it relates to entering, remaining at, filming, blocking access to, or approaching within a defined distance, not less than 100 yards, plaintiffs or their franchisee stores, offices, warehouses, franchise locations, parking areas, employees' homes, or franchisee homes hereafter, except through counsel, lawful service of process, or court-approved activity. The modified TRO also does not address the videos that were taken down. So yeah, kind of ironically, the judge is basically saying here that this modified TRO is too vague. And the reason why I say that's ironic is because the original TRO that was approved was extremely vague. In fact, the language that the judge doesn't seem to be a fan of in this modified TRO is basically the exact same language that was used in the original restraining order. In fact, if we take a look at the original restraining order, we can see that they do say like their franchisees, employees, officers, owners, customers, vendors, or family members. They also mention not to post personal information like email addresses and home addresses of the plaintiffs, franchisees, owners, or employees. Except in this original restraining order, the judge didn't say like, oh, it's unclear if the defendants know who all of these people are, but now he is saying that. But even though this does seem to be fairly ironic, I guess it isn't a bad thing that he's asking for them to be a bit more specific because, again, a big problem that a lot of us had with the original restraining order was that it was so vague. Like, he is right. How would Ben possibly know who all the employees are unless they were actually in a store, like in uniform? But unfortunately, what this does mean is Ben is still pretty much silenced because, again, this wasn't approved. And they are saying like they want things corrected. So hopefully once things are corrected, the judge can then approve it. But the only problem here is bricks and minifigs have responded. And I'm not sure if it's exactly what the judge was looking for. And we are going to take a look at that in just a second. But I feel like another thing that's worth bringing up here is that I'm sure the judge is probably aware at this point that there is a problem with the original restraining order with the fact that it is so vague. And we've seen how this vagueness has caused problems, right? I mean, in a previous video, we spoke about the fact that Crystal and Benjamin, the previous owners of the Salem store, actually filed a motion for limited intervention and request for expedited hearing. And this was because even though they are not listed as defendants in this temporary restraining order, it's still does affect them. In fact, it names them. I mean, first of all, we can see in the original restraining order, it says plaintiffs are entitled to entry of this temporary restraining order, and co-defendants, including doors 1 to 15, which is basically like a placeholder for unnamed defendants. Their affiliates, co-conspirators, employees, contractors, agents, and representatives, and anyone acting in concert with them, directly or indirectly, in person, remotely, or online, are immediately restrained from. So yeah, straight away, very vague, but like I mentioned earlier, Crystal is literally mentioned in this, where it says, maintaining the current publications as such term is defined in the verified complaint, and any other video, audio, or other form of publication posted on any online streaming platform by co-defendants, directly or indirectly, and requiring that the publications and any such other communications published by co-defendants be immediately removed and or taken down from any online streaming platform, or otherwise published that in any way relate to the private legal dispute underlying this matter between Brian and Crystal, and the assertions of wrongdoing as described in his verified complaint. So Crystal and Benjamin filed this motion to intervene because they were like, well, why are we affected by this? We're not even a defendant in this case, and in fact, we are suing Bricks and Minifigs in a separate case. And I think this really did prove how vague the original restraining order was and how unfair it was, quite frankly, and maybe the judge is aware of that now, hence why he probably wants to be a bit more specific in this modified restraining order. In fact, there was also another motion that was filed where a person called Gregory Belmont wanted to intervene in this, similar to kind of like what Crystal and Benjamin are doing, except for very different reasons. And basically what he was saying is that he's a subscriber to Ben's channel and his Patreon, and because of this restraining order, the public cannot receive information that has been impacted by the restraining order, and he mentions that this is of public interest. Now, this motion to intervene has been heavily scrutinized by a lot of like attorneys who have the YouTube channels and made videos kind of talking about this, not only because they feel like the judge would just throw this out, but also because there was like a lot of spelling mistakes in there. And in fact, I'm not going to mention the company here because you'll see why. But basically, Gregory mentions his company in this motion, which is a legal AI software. So AI legal advice, I guess. And I mean, if he used that to file this motion, then it's probably not the best advertisement for it because, again, like I mentioned, there's a bunch of spelling mistakes. And yeah, it seems like the majority of people I've seen has basically came to the conclusion that Gregory is doing this just to promote his legal AI software. And he's just using the fact that this is a popular topic and obviously people will cover this and maybe it could promote his company. I don't know if that's true, but yeah, either way, I don't really think this is going anywhere. But what I'm trying to say is the fact that the original restraining order was incredibly vague has clearly caused a bunch of problems. So maybe that's why the judge wants to avoid that going forward, and we can actually take a look at the response that, from what I understand, was literally filed like an hour ago as I'm recording this right now. So the first point in the response says the language of the stipulated preliminary injunction was carefully designed by parties to modify and narrow the scope of the court's initial temporary restraining order and has been submitted by stipulation, agreement, and joint motion of the parties. The identity of the plaintiffs, their franchisees, and business locations are matters of public record, as they are franchised Bricks and Minifigs retail businesses, each with branded storefronts, business addresses, and readily identifiable online, physical, and email addresses and phone numbers. The private home addresses of every franchisee owner and or employee may not be known, but such may be discoverable via public records. And this is what I was saying earlier, where I'm like, I don't know if this is really what the judge was asking, right? He's asked them to be more specific, and bearing in mind, I'm not a lawyer, right? My knowledge in this type of stuff is very, very, very limited. But to me, this doesn't really answer the question of like, how is Ben supposed to know every employee? Like, yeah, you can find out this information through public records, but like, what is Ben supposed to do? Search up every single employee and try to remember them all? Now, again, I'm not a lawyer, so what the fuck do I know? This might be approved. I don't know, right? I guess we're going to find out. But to me, this just doesn't feel like the answer that the judge was looking for, but again, I could be wrong. As to whether videos have been taken down, plaintiffs are unaware of any publication or other videos having been taken down. Nevertheless, the parties have agreed and acknowledged the proposed stipulated preliminary injunction is not intended to restrain lawful speech in any way, as it is their intention to allow a full and free discussion of the subject of this litigation, which they believe makes this issue moot. And yeah, I mean, I'm glad to see they're not trying to restrain lawful speech, but that obviously begs the question, why was Ben, Brian, and Victor silenced in the first place? Because they absolutely were trying to restrain lawful speech. That is kind of the big problem here. But yeah, either way, that's their response. I guess we'll just going to have to wait and see what the judge has to say about this. But at this point, Ben still can't really speak about this situation. I'm not sure how long it's going to take, but the judge did respond pretty quickly before, so hopefully that would be the same again. And I guess we're just going to have to wait and see if the judge approves this or not. And I would love to know your opinions in the comment section down below. I mean, what's your opinions on the judge's response to the joint motion to modify the restraining order? And also, what's your opinions on this newest response? Do you feel like this is going to be approved? Let me know in the comment section down below. And yeah, if you did enjoy this video, please do leave a like down below, subscribe if you are new, and until the next one, I'll see you guys in a bit. Alright, goodbye.